What is up, podcast world? Welcome to another episode of the Church Voice Podcast. All right, I'm Pastor Spencer Davis, and I'm here with my co-host,
Tyler Rhodes. What up, y'all?
Yeah, I'll let you say your name this week.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I always say it for you. But yeah, we're back with another one this week. So we're going to get started. But listen, as usual, so you know how podcasts do like their sponsors and stuff like that. I feel like we got to say our sponsor every week.
We got to,
because it's critical, man.
Yep.
This is our place of worship. This is our place of employment. And this is a place that we just absolutely love. So we are completely sponsored, supported, and recorded right here at Christian Center Church, South Bend, Indiana, 530 East Island Road. If you want to hit some snail mail, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so we're here at the church, so you can check us out at Christian Center.
There you go.
ChristianCenter.org, /church-voice-podcast. And of course, we're on Instagram as well. So follow us over there at Church Voice Podcast, all one word. But listen, check out the church. If you're listening to this, you haven't heard of our church, you haven't, whatever, you're not connected to our church, check us out there. Check out Pastor's sermons. We got a lot going on. So yeah, I just wanted to give that plug before we got going. So how's your day going, Pastor Tyler?
It's going well, man.
Well,
yeah.
It's like all of 9:30 in the morning. So yeah, it's going
been
well
wonderful so far. We'll see how the rest of the day goes.
Yeah, that's very true. But
Yeah.
it's
yours?
Friday. It's good. I'm still kind of getting my bearings this morning.
Yeah. Today is a high carb day for us.
Yeah.
So we are pumped.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really, really smart the way they set up this plan.
Okay.
Because you do a few low carb days.
Okay.
And then like the high carb day is like the carb packed day. Mm-hmm. And you look so forward to it that it helps you get through the lower carb days.
Yeah.
So I'm like through the moon. I had a bowl of cereal. You'd have thought it was a steak dinner.
No, I feel you though. I feel you. Those days are important.
Yes.
And I don't know, we're just going to get on diets, I guess, this morning.
I guess so.
But I'm reading a book called Eat Smarter.
Uh-oh, here he goes.
No. Look, hey,
we do need to do a podcast just on this at some point.
We have to talk about nutrition and hydration, and I have to just say where I'm at. All right. Well, we're not going to get into it right now. If you want to get into it, keep listening for another episode, because we might even talk about it next week. Yeah. But I am reading a book called Eat Smarter by Stevenson. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. This man he's got the #1 health podcast in the nation. Super good stuff. But he talked about that in like the introduction, that food has to be enjoyable. And we kind of miss that sometimes, because diet for so long has been like, just suffer through it, or be hungry, or eat what you don't like. And he's like, dude, that's not going to work. I like what you're saying.
The whole food is only fuel thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of diets will tell you that. It's only fuel and this, but it makes it not enjoyable.
There's so
You're
much,
exactly right.
There's so much more to food than we give it credit for.
True.
So, but you excited for this weekend?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's going to be a good weekend. Tomorrow, Saturday, guess I should say.
Yeah.
It's going to be a chill day for us. We don't get a ton of those. So
Definitely not.
It'll be good.
Yeah. Well, good. Honestly, man, I kind of just want to get into it, because I know,
Let's go.
I know we don't have a ton of time. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that we're very concise with where we're going today.
Yeah.
This episode is going to be, it's relevant. Cause I think it's kind of a right now kind of situation, and something that maybe, again, Church Voice Podcast, something that the church may be talking about, have heard about, and everything like that. But I want you to start with our subject, with the individual that we are going to kind of begin the conversation on, and then kind of we'll just go from there. So introduce our guest from the past, if you will. So,
as always, this is one of the historical voices that we're studying. See how they adopt the lifestyle of Jesus, and we want to learn from him. So today is the one, the only, the Billy Graham. The Billy Graham. Yeah. Billy died in 2018. He was 99.
Yeah.
He was born in 1918. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was super cool too.
Yeah. I mean, he failed because he didn't hit the big triple digits, but close enough.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a little jacked up. There's a Billy Graham fan like just threw his phone down on the ground. Like, how could you say that? It's a joke. It's a joke. Yeah, 99's impressive.
That is very
that's
impressive.
goals right there, man.
That's
it's
very
awesome.
impressive.
He was born in Charlotte, North Carolina. Shout out to Southeast home.
Yeah,
I was born in Georgia. I don't have nothing to do with North Carolina, but got some family
Shout
down
out
there.
to the South.
Shout out. He was in ministry for 6 decades.
Wow.
So incredible, the longevity that he had. He was an advisor to every president from Truman, who was the 33rd, to Obama, who was the 44th. Isn't that nuts? An advisor to every single president from then on. And then he had really close relationships with 3 of them. LBJ, not LeBron James, Lyndon B. Johnson. There was a young kid listening, LeBron James? When was he president?
This is incredible. I'm going to check out this Billy Graham guy.
Yeah. Richard Nixon, which probably isn't the best name on the resume.
Yeah. He should have gotten a little bit more advice.
Yeah. Yeah, he should have listened a little bit more. And then there was one other, I'm forgetting off the top of my head, who the other one was, but he had some real close relationships with some of those guys. So one of the things he was known for was his annual crusades.
Yeah.
That he would go, thousands of people would show up to these crusades. He would preach the gospel. According to his website, he preached to over 210 million people in more than 185 different countries.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. I mean, he just, and Billy Graham was a gospel guy. He was
100%.
Always preaching the gospel.
100%. It was all salvation, man.
Yep. All salvation all the time. And then we always do a fun fact. And you actually found this one.
I dug this one up. I thought, I was like, what?
Yeah. This is weird.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
So when Billy was 15 and Prohibition finally ended in December 1933, his father forced him and his sister Catherine to drink beer until they got sick, which is nuts. And it created such an aversion for them that they never went back to it. Never. Which I would imagine.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Soon as Riley and Parker hit 15.
All right, let's get this over with.
Reese is close. Reese is going to get it when he turns 15. But, I mean.
Yeah, but
just the crazy.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
It was a different time, guys.
Yeah.
But just the fact that I mean, like, it's crazy that it created that aversion to drugs and alcohol.
Right.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that helps us to kind of shoot down the whole results-based parenting philosophy.
Yes.
That just because things turn out well does not mean the means by which you use to get to that end was acceptable.
Yeah. It worked in this one instance. All right. Don't try this at home.
Yeah.
people.
That is not one of the things we want to model.
Horrible.
So I know in regard to Billy, I know there was some things you wanted to share specifically about him and some other evangelists that's really what we're going to share on.
Yeah. So, like I said, I want to dive right in because, I've got a lot that I've got to share before we kind of get to the meat of what we want to talk about. So we wanted to talk about what is known as the Billy Graham rule. Okay. And when you Google this, you'll realize that the Billy Graham rule is actually something that is derived from, something else called the Modesto Manifesto.
I love it.
Yeah. The name is so cool by itself. So the Modesto Manifesto was actually something that, him and his team put together after a series of meetings in actually 1948. So you said that it was 47 that he would start having these annual crusades. So in 48, him and his team came together and they put together what one of his team members named the Modesto Manifesto.
Yeah. So this is at the very beginning.
Very beginning. And so, and this is what happened. So after a series of meetings, in 48, Billy had each member of his team go to their hotel room for 1 hour. And he said, write down all the problems that you foresee with what we're doing. Evangelism, ministry, gospel, whatever it is. Write down all the problems that you see, that potential problems that you see for what we're doing. And so an hour later, they came back and all of their lists were eerily similar.
That's crazy.
They had kind of wrote all of the same problems that they foresaw could come down the pike.
I bet you if our team, like our church staff, did the same thing,
yeah,
I bet you it'd be very similar.
I think we should.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be interesting.
I agree.
Yeah. So we're gonna write that down for our personal staff notes. But yeah, so they went to the room for an hour and they came back, and these were the things that they decided were like, because here's the thing, and I'm gonna read the quote. This is the quote, and then we'll talk about kind of the rules, the Modesto Manifesto itself. So this is the quote, and this is what in Billy Graham's autobiography. It says, he said, in reality, it was more of an informal understanding among ourselves, a shared commitment to do all we could do to uphold the Bible's standards of absolute integrity and purity for evangelists. So this was something that they came up with amongst themselves for the purpose of integrity, purely the purpose of integrity. So number one, okay, so there's 4 rules. All right. If you want to call them the Billy Graham rules or the Modesto Manifesto, that's up to you. But there were 4 rules, and the first had to do with money. All right. And so basically the goal was to not squeeze money out of people in an emotional reaction. All right. And that's something that we've seen in the church. That's something that I mean, we see this across the board, whether it's local church or TV church, doesn't matter. That happens. And so they vowed that they're not going to do that, and they're not going to try to raise money through an offering and everything like that. And they would depend upon money raised beforehand. So instead of depending on the money that's raised at the meeting, they would depend on money that's raised for these events beforehand. Huge rule. Yeah. I think that's absolutely amazing. So then rule number 2 focused on, and this is the one that gets the most attention. And I'll be honest with you guys, this is the one that's going to get the most attention for this episode as well. So the second was on the danger of sexual immorality. And I'm just going to read this so that we can get a full understanding. This is what Billy Graham wrote. He said, we all knew of evangelists who had fallen into immorality, who separated from their families, while separated from their families by travel. We pledged among ourselves to avoid any situation that would have even had the appearance of compromise or suspicion. From that day on, I did not travel, meet, or eat alone with a woman other than my wife. We determined that the Apostle Paul's mandate to the younger pastor Timothy would be ours as well. Flee youthful lusts. That's 2 Timothy 1:22. And so you guys sit on that for a second. But then the third was, so to avoid the tendency of many evangelists to carry on the work apart from the local church.
That's huge.
Yes, huge. Or even criticize local pastors and churches openly and scathingly. So they determined that they would not work, anybody who was willing to work with them, they would work with them. You know, if they would accept them, we would accept. So if the local church was willing to work with them, they'd work with them. But even if not, they were not ripping apart the local church, talking about local ministries, anything like that. Their goal in this manifesto was to work with local churches as much as humanly possible, as much as they would allow, as much as churches would allow them to. So, and then the fourth was this is the issue. The fourth issue was publicity. So they vowed that day to not pad their numbers. Cause back then evangelists would say, oh, we had 50,000 people, and reporters got to the point where they couldn't trust these numbers from these evangelists.
Yeah.
And so they vowed not to pad their numbers. And so those were the 4: money, sexual immorality, What was the third one?
Outside the local church.
Outside the local church and publicity. But I want to focus on this rule number 2, and that's the issue of sexual immorality. Now, this is what is known as the Billy Graham rule, because this is the rule that people talk about, whether it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. It doesn't matter. This rule has been discussed a lot.
I think it's the most heavily criticized rule.
100%, because the other 4 rules are like, oh yeah, that's great. That's integrity.
Yeah.
But for some reason, this integrity of sexual immorality, and specifically this rule of I will not eat meat or, whatever with a woman alone other than my wife. This rule is scrutinized. And it was on my heart to talk about this rule, and it just hit me so hard because of a recent situation that has transpired in knowledge that we've come to about Ravi Zacharias. And I don't want to take this episode just to like say, oh my goodness, these things, but I want to look practically at, number one, maybe just speak to kind of why behind that, and maybe speak to practically how we can avoid those things. And honestly, you can't talk about avoiding these sexually immoral failures without talking about this Billy Graham rule.
Right.
Because when you look at Billy Graham, and I'm going to try to shut up here.
You're good.
But I'm so fired up about this, because when you look at Billy Graham, you said he ministered for how long?
60 years.
60 years. And you look at his ministry, his life, you look at the things that he accomplished, the multitude of people that he preached the gospel to, the longevity, the integrity of this ministry. And even upon his death and in his life, you don't hear of moral failure in this man's life, which is absolutely astonishing to me.
Right.
Given the culture that we live in, and given the mistakes that we all make. We're pastors. We've made mistakes.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying I think by the grace of God, we haven't had these grand moral
right.
failures, and by the grace of God, we won't. But it's because we have to look honestly at these rules, like the Billy Graham rule, and say, okay, this is something that we should take heed to. So how do you feel about this? What do you have to say about this? Because it's just something, and I know you knew more about Ravi Zacharias than I did, because you were talking about him when he was still alive, and then even when he passed, you kind of. And I was like, oh, because I'm not, you're more scholarly than I, you know what I mean? You know these apologetics guys and stuff like that. So just kind of speak to the situation a little bit, Pastor Tyler.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be quiet for a second.
Yeah.
Get my breath back.
I'm going to give you a rest.
I'm just fired up about it, man.
Yeah. I am too. And I practice the Billy Graham rule.
Me too.
I'm not alone with a woman other than my wife ever. I even did it, and this may seem extreme, but this is the way I went about it. When I was a youth pastor in Alabama before living here, we had a 90-year-old secretary who was a woman. Her name was Geraldine. Shout out to Geraldine. She's still kicking.
Of course she was. Geraldine. I got an auntie, Geraldine.
That's such a Southern name, isn't it?
Coolest auntie. Yep, Louisville, Kentucky. Coolest auntie.
Oh, yeah. And I wouldn't be there with her alone. And so Dentine and I would joke about it, like, oh, be careful, Geraldine's at the office. But I really wouldn't. I would leave. And it's not because I was attracted to Geraldine. Sorry. But it was just, that was the way I chose to do it. That completely and totally, I'm never going to be alone. And it's because I don't trust myself.
Exactly.
And I don't trust them. I don't trust my flesh, and I don't trust their flesh, because I grew up with my dad telling me all the time that moral failure can happen to anybody. If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong person or the wrong situation, because it wasn't just a sexual thing. It was financial. It was really having to do with all these rules. But he said, you're just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Anything can happen. He used to tell me, Tyler, I want you to know you are capable of anything.
Yeah.
These people who've done horribly horrendous things and have committed evils that are unimaginable are not very different from you. He drove that home for me.
No, and here's the thing is like, I don't know why we look for some sort of righteousness within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why we dispute these sorts of rules. And we say, it's not, I would never. Anybody who would say I would never, I would question that person.
These other people said the same thing.
100%,
I'm sure Ravi said,
yeah,
I would never.
I would never. I would never go as far as to do the things that I ended up doing. There's a certain point where we can say I would never, but the truth is that we are all just a few choice decisions and a few choice deceptions away from, like you said, that moral failure on any level, sexual, financial, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly. So when we go into everything saying, I'm capable of anything, that drives us into utter dependency upon the Spirit. And that's where we have to be. Because whenever we start to become puffed up and say, like you're saying, the righteousness that I have on my own is enough to keep me from stumbling, that's pride, number one. And then what happens is we go into these situations and we're not guarding our heart. We're not guarding our mind. We're not guarding our bodies. And all of a sudden you begin to feel things that are inappropriate, see things that are inappropriate, and then eventually do things that are inappropriate. And so all of these things start somewhere. What happened with Ravi Zacharias, as awful as it was, I mean, these reports that are coming out, these things are confirmed. Okay. These aren't accusations anymore. These are things that happened. And they had to start somewhere, but at the end, we're talking about rape. We're talking about spiritual manipulation. We're talking about sexting, soliciting images from women all over the world. I mean, they've got these things on his phone. So it's not like this is speculation here. This is Ravi's own organization, RZIM, Ravi Zacharias International Ministry, has confirmed all of these things as true. And it had to start somewhere. And I'll tell you this too. I was a huge Ravi Zacharias fan.
I know. Because when he passed, you were like, oh man, like
I grieved.
Yeah, you did. I remember that because you were actually fresh here at the church when kind of, still newer at the church.
Yeah.
And I remember you kind of going through that and talking about that.
Yeah. I had to talk it out with several people, none the more than my wife Dentine herself, because I just really felt like the church lost a key voice. And I was like, who's going to take over for that? Who's going to make up for that?
And when you look at his content, it's power-packed stuff. I mean, like the truth behind the things that he was saying. So there's still so much value there.
Yes.
But the integrity has been stripped. And the saddest part to me, and I hope I didn't cut you off.
No, you're good.
Okay. But the saddest part to me is the integrity being stripped upon his death. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, he did these things when he was alive, but now it's like, that stain is always going to be there. Mm-hmm. And so we've kind of spoke a little bit on the personal side, like having a personal understanding of one, the flesh within yourself, understanding that you can't put nothing past yourself. That's why these safeguards are so important.
Yes.
That's why these rules are so important. That's why these standards within yourself are critical for integrity.
Yes.
Absolutely critical. And you have to be honest with yourself first, but then you have to be honest with the people that are around you. You have to have honesty around you. The fact that Billy Graham in 1948 had the forethought to have his team go to their rooms and write these problems down is incredible to me.
Yes.
And the fact that they were able to have this open conversation and make this agreement amongst themselves to follow these standards is absolutely mind-boggling. So yes, it starts with you as an individual, but then it starts with accountability.
Yes, you have to have people
across
in your
the
life.
board. You have to. Mm-hmm. You have to. And those people have to be able to be brutally honest with you, with the situation, and then you have to be able to be brutally honest with them.
Yes.
And say, okay, Yeah. And then because I'm sure that these guys held each other to that standard.
Yeah. Well, and here's what this means on just a raw, personal, vulnerable level. And this is hard. And I understand that it's hard. That means that with a small subgroup of people who we absolutely trust, we have no secrets. There are 3 people in my life, my wife, my best friend Jonathan, and my best friend Nick. Those 3 people, they know everything about Tyler Rhodes. We call it confession time. I have confessed and they have confessed to me.
Yeah.
Every stupid, evil thought, action, all those kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying I call them up at the end of every week and say, let's confess all our sins to each other.
Yeah.
But those things that people need to know, that those things are out there. And so I can look at those 3 people and say, my conscience is clean because I've told you how my conscience isn't clean. And so bearing that, and we can't do that with everybody.
No.
Matter of fact, we can't do that with even a lot of people.
Right.
It's very, 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 very small group of people.
It should be one hand.
Yes. Yes.
Max.
Yes.
Max. You said what? 3 people?
3 people.
Yeah. So, you're about maxed out.
Right. And you're right. And there's a lot of people who aren't on that list who I love dearly.
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say my parents.
No.
My family's not on that list.
Bad idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm joking.
Yeah. And so we all have to compile that list at some point. Now, when those people come into your life, when, all of those things, a lot of that is up to God and when he puts those connections in our lives, but we have to be intentional about looking for those kinds of things. And it's important. And so when you have that accountability structure, when you know there are people in your life who I can say anything to, and I have, I mean, I'm telling you, the things these people know about me, they could bury me if they wanted to. But that's the level of that's the level of accountability that we need.
Yeah.
Because if I keep these secrets tucked in and I keep the compromises contained inside, they're going to find me out at some point because I'm going to keep sliding down that hill. It's going to keep snowballing. I'm going to keep fading into it. So if I don't cut it off there, it's going to cut me off eventually. And apparently, that's what happened with Ravi. That's what happened with Carl Lentz. Okay, this is another high profile incident there. And so you see a common denominator of no accountability structure. And that's why I think this Billy Graham rule is so important. And so I get the criticisms. People say, they say it's a sexist rule. Women are out to sleep with men, stuff like that. It's not that. It's not that.
Because it's the same thing about men, though.
Exactly.
So I know it's equal.
It should be swapped either way.
It's equal on both. Just because it was a male that made the rule doesn't make the rule a sexist rule.
And that's where people trip up.
Yeah, because it's saying the same thing about the man.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and here's the thing: if we're being honest, it's the same. It's the same goes for men. If that's the stamp that we're trying to put on it,
right?
All men want to have sex with women. All women want to have. It's equal rule. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing: it's not that rule is scriptural, but when we talk about the flesh, it's in the scripture. Like, I think the scripture points to the fact that we can't put nothing past ourselves. The heart is the most deceptive of all. You know what I'm saying? Like, your emotions, your feelings, that we can deceive ourselves.
Yes.
And that's 100% possible. So the criticism is really null and void. Yes, I get that Billy Graham made the rule or him and his team made the rule. But if it was someone else, it still applies. Mm-hmm. And so, and I think that there's a level of so personal responsibility, accountability, and humility.
Yes.
I think, and when you look at Billy Graham, there was a level of humility, because you talk about this level, because you can't have accountability without humility. You can have a level of accountability. You can say, oh yeah, I wanted to work out. So, hey, did you work out this week? Blah, 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 blah. That's light accountability.
Right.
But deep accountability takes a deep level of humility. And so when you look at Billy Graham in his life, he didn't have a power complex. And and I don't like saying this, but when you hear about these accounts, even of Ravi Zacharias, and you hear about these accounts of these other individuals, these moral failures, there's a power complex in play. Mm-hmm. And there's a lack of humility with God and with other people. And when, again, Billy Graham lived his life, like he lived by this verse of he who humbles himself before the mighty hand of God, in due time he'll be exalted. Like there's a story that I heard on another podcast where a guy, and this is just a random story about this level of humility. He's in the middle of, probably the peak of his career, right? And this young minister comes and he says, "Oh, I'm trying to, be an evangelist, blah, blah, blah. And, I've got a team around me, this and that, but nobody's asking me to come speak." And the team lets him in and they have this conversation. And basically the guy wanted Billy to pray for him. And to make a long story short, Billy Graham begins to pray for this. And again, height of his career. Billy Graham begins to pray for this guy. And the minister that was with him, this was Luis Palau told this story on the Carey Nieuwhof podcast. Just a plug for another podcast. Yeah. But he told this story. And Luis kind of looks like, because he hears Billy's voice, so they start to pray. There's more to the story. They start to pray, right? And he hears Billy's voice kind of muffled. And he kind of does, the sinner's thing, and he peeks his eye open to see what's going on. And he sees Billy Graham face down, spread eagle, praying for this man that he didn't know from Adam, who came to just have a conversation with him, face down, praying a blessing over this man, praying that he'd get, that he'd get opportunity, blah, 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 face down at the height of his career. And so you look at those kind of stories and those kinds of situations, and he shared with Luis after that, he said, he shared that scripture, he who humbles himself before the mighty hand of God, in due time he'll be exalted. And so he lived by that scripture of humbling yourself before the mighty hand of God. There's not a lot of, we see the celebrity of pastors today, and there's not a lot of pastors who are going to get on their face in prayer for a stranger.
There's not a lot of pastors who are going to take the time
to even have the conversation. And so, and I don't say that again, we're not, it's the Lord. And so let's take our blinders. It's the Lord's working in Billy's life that we see.
Yes.
And so that's always the focus. But he put the safeguards in place. He was personally responsible, personally accountable, and he walked in humility. And that's why you see the integrity of his life and ministry.
Yeah, exactly. And so the same way that we've talked about, that we've seen common themes throughout those who have fallen. And again, we don't talk about those things lightly. You and I really struggled with even mentioning it.
Yeah, I didn't even want to do this episode that.
I know.
But it was just pressing because it's such a right now conversation.
Yeah, we just had to. So as we see common themes throughout those who have fallen, we also see common themes with those who finished their race and run in such a way as to win, as the Apostle Paul says. And Billy Graham is just one example of many examples of people who've done this. Another example, this guy's still living, so he doesn't
count. You can't talk about
he doesn't fit the podcast. He doesn't, so we can't ever use him as a subject. We could use his dad though. But this guy's name is David Ravenhill, Leonard Ravenhill's son.
Got it.
You know how much I love Leonard Ravenhill. So David Ravenhill, he's got a series of messages called Surviving the Anointing. And he talks about scriptural examples of those of characters who did finish well and those who did not finish well. And he talks about the characteristics of finishing well. And what's interesting is I just finished part 3 last night. There's 8 parts, and it is wrecking me. As soon as I'm done listening, I'm going to turn right around and listen again. But the first 3 rules he talked about was dependency, prayer, or he called it intimacy, and then humility. So very similar to these common themes, and I'm sure these other things will come up as we go, very similar to these 3 things about finishing well. And if it wasn't difficult to finish well, the Bible wouldn't talk so much about it.
Talks so much about it.
So much. And one thing I find that's interesting is the example of Moses not finishing well. And that one is a heavy one because of the high heights that Moses got. I mean, if you want to look back at one key character in the Old Testament, most people in the New Testament look back at Moses. Okay, David's up there, Abraham's up there, we know the prophets, okay, Elijah, we know these things. But they look back at Moses a lot. And I've been studying lately in Numbers 20, the whole incident at the waters of Meribah in the wilderness of Zin, when God tells Moses to speak to the rock and he strikes it. And he ends up, God tells him, you can't enter into the promised land. You'll see it, but you'll never enter in. And it's crazy to me that when Moses strikes the rock in anger, he had just left God's presence. Literally just left. Him and Aaron are in the tent of meeting. God speaks to them, tells them what to do, tells them how he's going to provide for the children of Israel. He leaves God's presence and immediately has an emotional reaction when he sees the people. And it was those unresolved emotional issues that ended up being his downfall. And what God tells Moses was, he said, you didn't trust me to demonstrate my holiness. So what Moses ended up doing was he demonstrated that he had divine ability, but did not demonstrate God's divine qualities. And I find that that's a common theme in us, that so often when I minister or see others minister, the goal is wrongly to show that we have this divine ability, this power, this anointing, all these things that God's given to us, instead of showing that we have divine qualities, that it's putting the fruit of the Spirit as more important and more central to our lives than the gifts of the Spirit. And that's hard because the gifts always get more affirmation than the fruit. And that's something that we're going to have to live with, that I can live with. I say I can. I need to get to this point. Where we can live with being known by our fruit and not by the gifts, and say, God, I'm more interested in having qualities like you than abilities like you, because I want to make sure I'm zealous for your glory alone. I know that's something A.W. Tozer, we're throwing lots of names out here.
Oh yeah.
This week.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Tozer at some point.
100%.
But Tozer talked about the main...
Stay tuned.
Yeah, exactly. The main goal of the church is to be zealous for God's glory alone. And I love that, because that keeps things in perspective right there. Yeah. My first and number one personal goal and our corporate goal is God's glory alone. And when we have that mindset in place, then that will keep us from these other passions, these other desires in us that are fleshly, that are going to end up leading to us falling.
Yeah. And again, just to go back to the subject, that's the most, to me, Billy Graham, he did exceptional things. But I think the thing that hits more than anything when I think about the man is the way he lived his life.
Yes. And more impressive than the 210 million.
That the numbers are pale in comparison to the fruit of his personal life.
And here's how we know that's true. Because you and I both knew about this rule, and we both knew about his stellar reputation.
Yep.
Neither one of us knew the numbers.
Not at all. Nor did I follow him, but I did know the rule.
Yep.
And I'm like, and you know what? I looked at that rule, and I looked at where, whether the vision is God has given you, given myself, whatever. I looked at that and said, okay, I need that in my life.
Yes.
I have to follow all of these rules, but of course I don't have to worry about working with the local church right now. I don't have to worry about publicity. I'm not, there's not a ton of money coming in.
Right.
So, but this is a rule that I can follow, that I need right now.
Yes.
And so this is a all the time rule, whereas these other rules, maybe not so much. Mm-hmm. And so we can't sit here and criticize this rule. And so the heart, guys, if you're listening to this, is to finish well.
Yes.
And this is a rule. And I get that we don't like rules. We don't like to be restricted. We don't like blah, 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 blah. But this is a rule that will help you finish well.
Yes, it is.
And that's the goal. And to walk, for you to walk in God's purpose and in his anointing for your life, all of that. But doing so and finishing well.
Yeah, exactly. And what I love about Billy Graham's example, and we've already hit on it, was that him and his team instituted these rules at the front end.
At the front end.
Rather than at the back end. Yep. And what I love about it, and you said it earlier, they had the foresight to go ahead and implement these rules now, even when don't nobody know who you and I are, even though we don't have a lot of publicity,
right. Do it
even
now.
though we don't have a lot of money, even though we don't have a lot of opportunity on the kind of national scale. And we don't know if that will ever come. And it really doesn't matter. But what matters is implementing the rules right now.
Exactly.
And when we implement these things right now, especially this second rule, this is just, I fully agree with you. This is an on-time rule because our former vice president, Pence, he was just criticized. Yeah. He was just criticized for having the Billy Graham rule.
Right.
And so it's so fresh on our minds. And I think one of the things that's criticized as well, and I know we're coming to the end here, but I really want to say this. I think this is really something strong to finish well on, is that people criticize it because they're like, it's not a big deal if I just hang out with a girl who's my friend and we're just hanging. I don't understand why that's necessary to give up. And I think a good perspective to have is it's not what can I keep doing and still finish well. It's what can I give up? What is it? Tell me anything, God, and I'll give it up. I don't care. I'm not sitting here clenching my fists trying to hold all this freedom intact. What is it that I can give up?
Wow.
What can I give up so that you can abide in me? I'll abide in you and I'll finish well.
That's, sorry, but that just opened my whole mind up to a literal mentality that we have. It's what can I get away with?
Exactly.
And not what I can give up. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we've got to wrestle with for the rest of our days.
Yes.
Because you see it scripturally is, instead of trying to give something up, there's people that just kind of want to get away with stuff. And it's like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Mm-mm. It's not going to work in this relationship with God. It's not going to work in the purpose of God. It's not going to work. You're not going to just get away with stuff. And the longer you entertain trying to get away with, and I'm convicted in certain areas, it's like there's nothing I'm going to get away with.
Yep.
But it is. It's what can I give up? What can I stop doing? Yep. What can I reel in? What safeguards can I put up? In order to finish well. So that's a powerful mentality because our culture has a get away with it culture.
Yes.
What can I get away with? What can I get by on? And it's like, no, because this is a sacrificial life. This Christianity, faith, believing, following Jesus, being a disciple, it's sacrificial. Mm-hmm. And it is a matter of what can I give up, and if it's friends, if it's if it's unhealthy relationships, whatever it is, in order to finish well, to hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Mm-hmm. Enter now into the joy of the Lord. Like you made it, you did what you were supposed to do. So, listen, we're gonna bring it in for a landing right there. Thank you guys so much for listening. I pray that this episode was a major encouragement for you, and just chew on these things. All right, personal responsibility, accountability, and humility, and take a note from Billy Graham's book. But it's all Jesus. Jesus moved in his life, and he was an example of Christ. And so, listen, be encouraged this week. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Church Voice Podcast, all one word. Check us out at the church, christiancenter.org/church-voice-podcast. But have a blessed week, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Peace out, y'all.
Peace.